Why, hello. My name is Emery Perry, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Before jumping into the bulk of this, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So, I'm pretty incredibly embarrassed to admit how little I know about scientists in my field. I've been studying physics at university for 3 years now, and people still mention physicists that I have absolutely no idea what they accomplished or their life story. Like, oh, have you heard of James Clerk Maxwell? Which I respond, who? Just the guy who put together the equations forming the basis for classical electromagnetism. Oh, Maxwell's laws. Yeah, I don't know anything about that guy. And it's infuriating in my mind that a lot of these scientists don't really have their stories told. We know their accomplishments, but we don't know much about them. And it can even be more frustrating when the ones we do tend to know are white and male. That being said, today I will be talking about Michael Faraday, a white man. However, his story has always stuck out to me because it's so different from other scientists. So, it's 1791, a dark, snowy English night. And it probably wasn't snowing because it was September, and I don't really know what time of day it was. But one of the greatest scientists of our history was born, Michael Faraday. Now, Faraday didn't come from a wealthy background. He had a very basic formal education. Honestly, he mostly educated himself. When he was 14 years old, he began an apprenticeship as a bookbinder and seller, which is probably not living the dream according to most 14-year-olds. But this apprenticeship gave him access to a lot of books, including science literature. And little Faraday was always interested in science, especially electricity. Now, it's a few years later, it's around when Faraday is 20 years old, and he gets access to these tickets to attend the lectures of the esteemed chemist Sir Humphrey Davy. Now, unlike many college students that I know, Faraday took these beautiful detailed notes at these lectures. And what did he do with these 300 pages of notes? Oh, what else would you do? He gifted them to Humphrey Davy, which got him some recognition. So shortly after this, Davy ended up damaging his eyesight in a nitrogen trichloride accident. So he ended up hiring Faraday as an assistant to help out with his experiments in chemistry. And this allowed Faraday to begin his career as an experimentalist and one of the greatest in history. So many people still didn't accept Faraday at this time in the world of science due to his background and his status. He was forced to eat with the servants, couldn't ride with Davy. It was a rough time, but he still continued on despite the way that people treated him. And through all his work, Faraday probably knew all there was to know about chemistry by the end of it. But his largest contribution to science that changed the way that we view the world was in electromagnetism. From his work came Faraday's law, obviously named after him, which you can't understand electromagnetism without. He experimented with a magnet and a loop of wire to discover electromagnetic induction. And this states that a current in a loop of wire can be generated by changing the surrounding magnetic field. And this was just revolutionary. And we'll go through a basic explanation of this by going through one of his experiments. So you have to start with a circuit, and in this case we're going to use a coil, and we need the circuit to see if there is an electric current flowing through it. So we also need a device to see if the current is flowing or not, and Faraday used a galvanometer, and this device told you if the current was flowing, and it also told you which direction the current was flowing, which you could see by the change in the needle. So to test if we thought that a magnetic field could change the current, we needed a magnet. But he found that just having a magnet close to the coil didn't do anything. There was a magnetic field from the magnet, but it didn't generate any current. And this is pretty disappointing. So we go to put our magnet away. But wait, did the needle just move on the galvanometer? By moving the magnet, we see a generated current. So this shows us that a change in magnetic field is what can generate the current, not just a magnetic field on its own. And this is a major way to see how electricity and magnetism are related, and a brand new way to generate electricity, which in this changing world, moving towards using so much electricity, was so important. From this, electric motors could be developed. Without this work, we couldn't have the same technology that we have today. So Faraday continued experimenting for the majority of his life. But he did eventually suffer a nervous breakdown in 1839. But even after this, he continued his work in electromagnetism and found out other things like Faraday's cage, which is extremely interesting, but we won't talk about right at this moment, so look it up if you are feeling encouraged. But from all of this, I find that we often neglect what people are going through in their lives and what they overcame to make the accomplishments that they did. We often feel pretty hopeless in our own lives and feel like we can't do anything because of where we're at. But we can look at these people that did these incredible things that changed the world, even through their struggles, and they just kept going. So Faraday inspires me to not give up, even if you can't see what the future holds. Like with his experiments, he saw that there was great importance to it, but he might not have been able to see the theory behind it. But other people came along, and from his research, his experiments, they found the importance to it. And I'll leave you with this brief little story and quote. When a respected gentleman asked Faraday, "What good is it?" after watching a demonstration on induction, which we just talked about, Faraday responded, "What good is a newborn baby?" Thank you.